The Street Fighter Alpha series was a 5th generation staple for me and my friends. As they came out in the arcade, an incredible amount of excitement came with it, because we knew a console release wasn't far behind it. The quality of these games were exceptional, and they easily account for a huge portion of my playtime that generation. The first Alpha had a limited roster, but I genuinely loved the atmosphere and story. It took place before Street Fighter II and introduced a few new characters. Alpha 2 then came along and improved just about everything from the roster, the visuals, and introduced some new play mechanics. When the third game showed up in the arcade in the summer of 1998, a sad reality took hold. The Sega Saturn retail market was in steep decline and the Dreamcast hype was well underway. The chances we would see a Saturn version of Part 3 was looking pretty slim. That fear was confirmed when in December of 1998, a port landed on the Sony PlayStation, a mere 5 months after the arcade version. To its credit, this PlayStation version was extremely well done. It looked the part, played great, and had enough of the animation to pull off a convincing experience. The next home version was for the Dreamcast, another one that nailed the arcade feel while giving us even better animation for a more faithful conversion. Fortunately, a Saturn port finally made its way out in Japan in August of 1999, courtesy of Mitchell Corporation. They had not long developed Osman in the arcade, a group of former Capcom and Data East employees that were no stranger to high expectation. Their work on Street Fighter 03 is held in high regard among the Saturn faithful, a 4MB RAM expansion game that many call the best console conversion available. In this episode, we will take a look at it and see if any of that is true. The gameplay sees numerous changes, modifications, and additions from the previous games in the series. The major additions are the 3 isms you can now choose. The X-ism is essentially a gameplay style closer to what you felt in Super Street Fighter II Turbo. This selection cannot air block, recover from throws, or use alpha counters. It's weak defensively as you take more damage with each hit, and it's missing air and ground recoveries. In the plus column, your damage output is higher, and though you only have one super combo with a single bar, it typically does much more damage should it land every hit. The Z-ism, which is known as the A-ism in the English versions, is your traditional Alpha Zero experience that closely resembles the previous title. You get the ability to air block, you get the recoveries and counters, and of course most fighters get multiple super combos that come with 3 levels of power. New to 03 here is the ability to pull off those supers by choosing the power based on the button you use. For example, if Ryu has a level 3 super combo ready, you can just use 1 level with Weak Punch, 2 levels with Medium Punch, or all 3 levels with Fierce Punch. This is a much easier method as opposed to the first 2 games in the series that required you to press multiple buttons to use levels 2 and 3 of the super combo gauge. The most challenging to play is the V-ism, which is based on the custom combo system from the previous game. Here you get a single variable combo gauge and no predefined super combos. When you pop your variable gauge when it's at least half full, you build your own series of hyper-fast chain combos. This can take some time to master, and technique is extremely important in maximizing damage. That's basically because your moves do less damage than the other 2 isms. Fortunately, with the V-ism, you do still have access to many of the staples of the Z-ism. You can still air block, recover, and zero counter. It's important to note that the X-ism, Z-ism, and V-ism are all affected by the character you use. Some isms have moves that can only be done with that ism. This extends to the super combos and even the counters. The necessity of a moves list has never been more important than it is here. The changes can make a fighter feel very different, and you'll want to know every move at your disposal to play your best. Other changes in Part 3 include a new block power gauge that loses strength the more times you block. Should your gauge become depleted, it shatters and you become vulnerable. This limits the endless turtle defense that occurred in previous games. This gauge does change in strength based on the ism you choose. There has also been a complete removal of the manual and auto-blocking options from the previous games. Game modes are many and quite extensive in their options. First up is your traditional arcade mode. Here you will battle a string of fighters and interact with a few to unfold their story. If you defeat the final boss, the game ends with the conclusion of that character's arc. Should you lose, you get a bad ending and are sent to the title screen. The Versus mode is a self-explanatory multiplayer option that allows you to compete with one another and keep track of your records. The Training mode is where you practice your moves, combos, and supers. You can set options with how your opponent responds. A big addition is the World Tour mode. As you travel around the globe, you compete in various match types with different objectives. You earn experience in this mode and can level up your fighter's abilities and even add new moves to a playstyle that wasn't there before. Save this fighter and its upgrades to use it in the other areas of the game. The Team Battle mode is a multiplayer option where up to 3 fighters can be chosen in a matchup that is played until both fighters' selections are defeated. Survival mode is a brutal trek through different courses of enemy types, where a single loss sends you packing. You have many options in this mode, such as the number of matches you play, and you can save your best play sessions. My personal favorite mode is Dramatic Battle. Here you get a bevy of options that involve 3 fighters. The traditional Dramatic Battle is a 2-on-1 fight where you and a friend can beat up on the computer. There is also the option of taking an AI partner and smacking the computer down. This mode gives you the choice of working your way through the standard roster or taking on the various bosses. By far the most challenging option is the Reverse Dramatic Battle. In this one, it's 2 computer-controlled fighters against you, a brutal turn of events that can be extremely challenging. You can play this mode with survival rules as well. The Final Battle mode is a straight-to-the-final boss option that gives you an ending after the fight. This is a great way to see a fighter's ending that you do not enjoy playing with. Finally, the roster of Part 3 is absolutely massive. Including all the original arcade fighters, it adds additional characters, complete with a story to explain their inclusion. This brings the tally to more than 30 fighters at your disposal, by far the most of any traditional Street Fighter game at that time. In addition to everyone from the 02 cast, you see Fei Long, T-Hawk, DJ, Balrog, M. Bison, Cody, Karen, Rainbow Mika, Julie, Junie, and Guile. There's someone here for everybody, regardless of your playstyle. Using the extra memory found in the 4MB RAM expansion cartridge, Street Fighter 03 is one of the most impressive two-dimensional titles you'll find on the platform. Load times are super short, the vast majority of the animation is intact as far as I can see, and the visuals are nothing short of breathtaking. Every stage uses color, atmosphere, and nods to the history of this great series and its characters. Just watching the various fighters begin each match with their trademark taunts, poses, and celebrations are enough to put most games to shame. The detail across every surface, every body part, and every set piece will send you away comparing it to every other 2D fighting game on the Saturn. In case I'm not 100% clear, it is gorgeous and easily remains one of the best representations of this genre when it comes to art design and variety. Many will disagree, but I think this game looks better than any of the Street Fighter 3 variations in overall appeal. It's the type of game I cannot complain about visually because it does little to nothing wrong. It builds on the designs from the previous releases, expands on them, and adds so much more that it's damn near overwhelming. There isn't a single stage in the entire set that I don't enjoy fighting against. There's no fighter that I do not enjoy watching their animation unfold in battle. The visuals are a stunning tapestry of eye candy that evolved over the many years this series had been in production. As far as the non-versus games are concerned, this is peak Street Fighter for me, in terms of graphics. While I do miss the character-specific ballads of the previous titles, the sound and music in Part 3 more than gets the job done. Some claim the sound effects are not as clear as they could be, but I never had an issue with them. The music is energetic and feels right at home. Let's have a listen to a few samples so you can decide for yourselves. The gameplay here is extremely fun but far from perfect. As with most fighting games with a large roster, there exists some pretty potent imbalances that make some fighters very effective and others much more difficult to obtain the same level of success. These imbalances are often exacerbated by the ism system, which can take an already low-tier fighter and make them even more difficult to play with, and in many cases, enjoy. But the main point that this is fun to play can't be overstated. The amount of options, the different fighting styles, the mid and end boss stories, it all comes together into something just about anyone who enjoys Street Fighter can find appealing. The World Tour mode is almost the equivalent of a small RPG with its upgrades and customizations. If there is ever a true blue Street Fighter RPG, I imagine much of its core makeup will use something similar. The dramatic battle mode provides near endless replay value. You can play it with a friend and beat up on a hated computer opponent, or you can really challenge yourself to take on two fighters hell-bent on your absolute annihilation. There's just so much here to consume and experience that nearly 30 years later I still find this as appealing as I ever did. From a presentational standpoint, the sound and visuals really couldn't have been any better. The 4MB RAM cart keeps the animation frames high and the loading times low, tying a bow on the package that completes its greatness. I was genuinely impressed with the PlayStation Edition, but the Saturn elevates that content to the next level. Even the Dreamcast version, which itself is incredibly well done, is missing a few things that make the Saturn game the preferred version for me, chief among them the incredible reverse dramatic battle mode. You can't go wrong with either of these versions really, but if you want the best conversion of this game, it's the Saturn alone at the top of the console heap. There are some fighting game purists that come down hard on conversions for their differences from the source material. These people want the arcade, and any change in feel utterly destroys the experience for them. If you happen to be one of these people, fire up one of the many arcade emulation options out there and have a blast. But for me, there was nothing in the Saturn game I did not easily adjust to and excel at. This, of course, was helped by the Saturn's best-in-class gamepad. Playing the Saturn game with its awesome controller after the Dreamcast or PlayStation versions is like jumping from a cheap entry-level sedan into a well-tuned sports car. It's the way it was meant to be played when considering a gamepad. In case I haven't been crystal clear, this game is S tier from the moment you press the start button. But for all my praise, many Japanese publications met 03 on the Saturn with middling reviews. They were unimpressed with its late arrival and were more than happy with the options that preceded it. As you can imagine, the few Western magazines that bothered to review it lavished it with praise. I still remember the Game Fan review that echoed many of my thoughts here. They said it was the best version, and I still believe that to this very day. There are some other great options should you be wondering. If you want a portable version, the PSP game is also loaded with content, and it too has extras that other versions do not have, like the reverse dramatic battle mode and extra fighters. Unfortunately, the Saturn version has become quite expensive over the years, thanks to its rarity and quality. If you want a physical version, which comes both with and without the RAM cartridge, you're gonna pay a bit more than you probably want. There are always alternative options on the Saturn should you be curious. Street Fighter 03 is worth the effort to find them, and then some. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.